Good morning. I've got the itchy heely hurting in my head. I've got the itchy heely hurting in my head. I've got the itchy heely hurting, oh, the itchy heely hurting. I've got the itchy heely hurting in my head. Yeah, sorry I haven't been on for the last week or so. I've actually let an infection in my tooth get out of hand. Shouldn't laugh about it. It's actually been hell. It's been literal hell. I haven't really slept, I haven't eaten, spent more or less the last week in bed. When I wasn't, the last thing I was really thinking about was the game, although I did get quite a bit done, you'll be pleased to know. Before we carry on with this latest development update, I'm Craig, by the way, if we haven't met before. If you haven't seen the other videos, I've now got a YouTube channel for this. If you just search We Are Musicians, I believe it's called. It's got a similar profile picture to the Twitch channel. But yeah, you'll be able to find the past updates. But before we carry on, I've noticed that my hair fits perfectly into the groove of this guitar here. Look. Oh yeah. Oh no! Oh, it's like brushing my hair in the mirror. Anyway, right, okay. So, like I say, I've done quite a lot. I won't talk for too long today because, like I say, I've got the itchy, healy hurting in my head. I'm on antibiotics, so it is healing up, and I'm going for an extraction this week, hopefully. So, without further ado, let's crack on and see what I've been doing with the game. You'll be pleased to know. Let's just first of all jump into the roadmap. And you'll see here fundamental mechanics and base game cards. That's pretty much where I said we were at. Now I'm pretty much done with that. You'll be pleased to know that bit is pretty much complete. Pretty much done all the fundamental mechanics because that basically comes out of the base game cards. So basically all the cards that are going to be in the initial game kind of lay out what the fundamental mechanics are. There are a few things that I want to tidy up, and I'll talk about that as we go through. But the first thing I want to do is kind of go through the spreadsheet. You'll notice it's a bit wild and there's a lot of colours. And as I said in, I think, the previous update, don't worry too much about the colours in the spreadsheet. They're not indicative of the game. They're more for my eyes as I'm organising this and when I'm going to be translating it over to cards. So we start at the careers part. Now, if you haven't seen any of the other updates, basically it's a board game that's played on a board. You roll a dice to move around and you land on different spaces. Each of those different spaces has a deck associated with it, a deck of cards. You draw the deck of cards and that adds to the narrative of the game. You either gain something, you lose something, something good happens, something bad happens. You find out as you go around. It's like a game of chance. And there are two decks for each of these decks. There's the one that's it's your main deck that you're drawing from for chance reasons, and there's the one that if you complete a certain thing, then you'll get that one. Like an inventory, right? So, inventory, 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 inventory. Right, so here we've got different careers. I have added a few. We've got level 0 careers, though, so they're basically the ones that don't really do much for you. In fact, in the wrong situation, they'll be very, very bad for you. Then you've got the level 1 careers. They'll get you a bit more money. You need some skill in order to do them, but they don't really get you anywhere in the music career. They won't do you any harm like the level 0 careers will, but they're not ideal for progressing. Level 2 careers are where you really start to progress into the music industry. That's where you're either a busker, where you're going out and doing gigs regularly, either as venue fodder under your own steam or with your family band, or working in a studio basically as a technician. That way you'll get chances to interact and do things like that. So then we've got the level 3 careers. That's where you're starting to become professional. So you're either working as a session musician or going out and touring under your own brand. So gaining more and more money and reputation by doing that. And then the level 4 careers, which is almost at the very top of where you could be. These are like the pretty much the top of the professional career ladder. Players really want to aim for here if they want to earn a lot of money and kind of complete the game in terms of score. In terms of narrative, they don't really have to go here in order to do everything, but there's quite a few things that are locked if you don't basically progress your career to this point. And then at the very top, the only level 5 career at the moment, Celebrity Icon. Now we'll probably add to that with further expansion packs. But there you go. Like I say, there's 2 decks, and there's loads of things you can get in terms of that, and I'll go into that probably once we've got a prototype in place, so that way we're not just looking at a spreadsheet for ages. Onto interactions, you've got everything from your NAN through, like, basically you've got these interactions that don't check anything, and chances are you can't avoid them unless you've got another card, say private security, so they're kind of like your day is interrupted. Now, I said in a previous episode, the interactions are kind of like the town square, so you go here for a random encounter, right? So it's kind of good if you want to meet someone that you can't go to a specific place to meet, and we'll talk about that when we get on to finances, and actually further down this list as well. So as you see, you get different reputation checks, different card checks, so different cards you'll have to have had in order to unlock the interaction, other attribute checks, career checks, different things like copyright infringement, things that affect your taxes and your finances. So yeah, all sorts, and there's all sorts of people you can meet, people you can basically get gigs through, people that will affect your reputation, private security here. You've got Karen, Dave, Sable, and Hillock in the base game, and they're basically your 4 private security. So not all 6 players can get private security, so that's important to note, I think. So it would be kind of a race to either force an interaction with one of these characters or hit the interaction space lots and lots until you can afford to get them. And they do have different career checks, and they will cost different amounts depending on what level career you have. And then you've got other interactions and so on, and stuff that will give you items depending on the check. And that's pretty much it. I won't spoil everything for you, but there's loads of stuff. There's also people like the videographer that if you get them, that means you don't have to have any videography talent to make things like a music video. You can rely on these people, but it will cost you money because they'll want paying for it. People like Logistics Larry, who if you don't have a driving license, if you don't have any transport, he'll make sure that you and all your staff can get there. And so on. And speaking of driving license, yeah, driving instructor. So that's someone that you go and visit in order to do driving lessons, and that's all in the sidebar. And just to give you a quick poke at that one, so you've got weekly driving lesson or a crash course. If you do a weekly lesson, we'll just cover one of these. It looks like a lot, and it's all in the formatting of the cards, so don't worry. It's about going through it step by step by step, each of your turns. So on the turn 1, you have to roll a d6 and get a certain score, and at the very and so on and so on, and then at the very end, sort of depending on what score you gained overall, depends on whether or not you get your driving license. I think that's the best way of explaining it without playing the game. Otherwise, it just looks like a lot of text. I did see one card, nobody around, so nobody around is interesting. That means that if you go here and you draw this card, that means you can choose to go to one of these 3 places, and that's in the finance deck. I'll cover that in a minute, but you've got High Street, North Road, and South Lane. They're 3 different locations that you can visit in this game in order to do various things. Onto creations, you can do everything from basics like going busking all the way through writing song, producing it, going out and doing gigs, doing tours, releasing music, building your website, music videos, documentaries, films, greatest hits, something big and something bigger I think I talked about before, but that's about making your magnus opus, your biggest record, and that will really be a big boon, but a lot of effort to get there. Group charity singles, that could be a good thing or a bad thing for everyone involved, and everyone shares the cost. That's why the welfare is 333,334, because you need at least 3 people to be of a certain level. So you need 3 people to pass this check and also roll a dice, I believe, in order to take part. So yeah, it's an interesting card, but that group charity single could be really, really good, could be really, really bad for everyone involved. So you throw parties and network events, which is all about trading with other players. Etu is, again, a bit of a joke at the U2, putting everything out on everyone's phone, putting the song out on everyone's phone. Something different is a concept album, and then photo shoot is basically getting your photos done. And there's a whole mechanic around photos that we'll come across later on, which reminds me I should do that for press, but I'm going to actually jump into the ideas quickly. So we need to put in photo related press cards. And don't look too much at that because I'm going to go into that in a little while. So yeah, that's it for basic creations, things that you can create. And then the sidebar for this one is basically the result of all those creations. So either the sort of things that you draw because you're throwing a party, or like I say, the songs, the creations that you're making, CDs, vinyls, things like that. Sorry to be scrolling, just seeing if there's anything I missed. Yes, there's everything from the gigs and stuff like that. And also there's the thing with the photos down here. So when they're taken at first, they're fresh, but after a year they become aging. And the photograph portfolio, that will actually be linking to press. I forgot to do that. That's why I've got the ideas journal. Right. Oh, I've just realised as well, I haven't got the chat open at the moment. Is anyone chatting? No, it's okay. It's probably too early for anyone because it's 11 o'clock in the morning here. So unless anyone's like watching elsewhere in the world, it's probably ridiculously early for them. So good morning, happy Sunday. Right, back to the spreadsheet. So that's creations. Talents now, which is all the different skills you can pick up. You've got all of these here which relate to your attributes, and that prevents you from having to do attribute checks. Instrumentalists and multi-instrumentalists link to your careers, what careers you can get. These ones here, so problem solver, that is means you can re-roll on any turns, so that's a good one. And then there's other ones like Soccerman, which means you can have 2 careers. Tech savvy lives. These ones down here really have a greater effect on the game. So tech savvy, videography, and photography, that affects what creations you can make. So if you don't make friends with a videographer, a tech head, or a photographer, then you can do those things yourself. You don't need those people. Clever investments. That's basically related to if you already have investments elsewhere, and that will increase the value of those investments. And then this one here, paradimensional, interdimensional, multidimensional, that's kind of like an evolution chain related to the card, the thing. And I'm not going to tell you what that does, but I have actually told you what it does in a previous video. But I tell you, probably the best cards in the game, I think, and the only cards that really sort of like completely break reality. Like they make no sense in terms of the reality, but you know they're fun and interesting. Oh, I'm getting all sorts of messages here. Yeah. I'm just going to put that on silent for now. That's text messages. There's not people on the stream. Don't worry, I'm not ignoring anyone on the stream. I'll talk to them in, 5-10 minutes. Forward thinking and prep for anything are actually similar to paradimensional, interdimensional, or multidimensional, but you don't have to have the thing to have them, and they're not actually as good. But yeah, very interesting cards nonetheless. So, finances, this is everything from paying your taxes to picking up money randomly, investments that you can get, copyright notices, different things where you can basically flog your items if you're short of money, like I say, new investments. And here's High Street, which is basically one of the streets. I think I showed you this before, but this is basically where you can purchase assets and go to the bank. So this is your main place to go when you're buying assets and bank. There is another form of assets that I've worked in, which is records, and they're not really as relevant as the other assets. They're more kind of like a gimmick item. They do have some asset value, but it's small. But I'll show you part of what my plan is for that in my ideas journal. But it's a fun little thing in the game anyway. It's another place to visit and another thing to do. And if you want, you can just go there and like buy up all the records, and then you've got some assets at the end of the game that you can basically trade in for score. And if you didn't catch the last one, that's the point of assets in this game. You buy them. They do have practical use in the game, but mostly when you get to the end of the game, the value of those items gets traded in, and then that gets added to your score at the end. So it's a good way of kind of saving your score, because your money otherwise gets messed with a lot in this game. And then you've got the different upkeeps, so different things that will happen to items that you have, different asset types, and then you've got North Lane and South Lane, and these are different streets as well. So they're really like hot links if you want to interact with different people. And also, like I say, the record shops here, so that's a different place you can buy assets and do different things. What's interesting is some of these places, such as, let's see, the new Vista, you can buy that. Robbie's Radical Roots, you can go there and get like a regular discount. Fantasy Photo Express this week, photos done. Razor Record and Sundry, oh, sorry about the jump there. You can work there. Booking agents where you pick up gigs. This is where you pick up your driving license. That's where you go get music lessons. Loose ends records, yeah, you can get a job there. Clean up and go rehab. Yeah, so I need to actually do the rehab loop. I still haven't finished that. Just because I'm being very careful about how I do it. I don't want to be insensitive because I realise addiction is it's a very deep and dark subject to be tackling. I want to be tackling it with the best humour without being completely insensitive to everyone. And then in the finance side bar, you've got basically everything to do with those cards above, everything that ties in. And then here's all your different assets. So property assets, you've got a lot of different properties you can buy. Transport assets, so different transport options. There's different miscellaneous items that'll help you with different things around the game, either just looking good or or being able to do gigs. Do the thing. The thing is just the best. I don't know how it's going to play out in testing, but I hope it plays out well. I hope people really enjoy it as a mechanic, just because I think it's it's mildly funny, but also if you're first to get it, you just be like so smug. So yeah, different things there in the miscellaneous. That's the pawn shop, Wonga Wanglers, and then you got the bank, so you can do your banking. And then you've got all the musical instruments, so you can buy them in the game. And like I said in the last one, if you buy the music shop, you inadvertently buy all of the, or rather, advertently buy all of the musical instruments as well, so you get to control them within the game. So your driving license weirdly wedged in there because I'd already worked on the rest of the list and put that there. And the last thing I put in was Raise Records, which is basically the record shop you can visit. Now, before I jump into the next section or the ideas, I'll just quickly go into what my thinking was with these. As you can see, there's a lot of different bands, a lot of different tracks and that. There's actually 12 in total to start with. And what I was thinking is I could, if I have the time, the effort and everything, it wouldn't take me too long if I did it on something like GarageBand. I would actually like to record each of these records and put them like either as a link or some sort of physical medium in the game, so people that buy the game can actually get these tracks, even if it's just a nice like funding perk for people. But that would be a lot of fun for me. I've had ideas for this. For instance, "You Belong with Someone" by Ron Skidley. You belong with someone, but not with me. It's very Ron Skidley is very much like who am I thinking of? Oh, someone in the chat will be able to tell me, but it's bloody Roy Orbison. There you go. Is kind of like a crude mix between Paul McCartney and Roy Orbison. The Skids, obviously, Ron Skidley's first band. Legs is my version of Wings. Terry Lee Lane, I was thinking like slow country, and so on. So I'm gonna like mess about with that, I think. So there you go. That's one of my side plans. It might not happen. It's not going in the roadmap. But yeah, for the time being, that's an idea I've had. Now, on to press, which is the last point we're going to be covering today. This was the last bit I've actually worked on and still needs some work. As I've pointed out, and plus there's one more mechanic I want to try and work in before I actually start to develop the prototype to see if we can make it work in testing. It's an idea that Nick came up with. I think I mentioned in the last video, basically, where it started off as kind of having different leanings within your audience. But what I was kind of thinking was different audience demographics and stuff. So we've come to that compromise, and I've just got to work out the mechanic and put that in the game. It will be an interesting one if it's in there, because it could affect everything. It could be one of these things that, really depending on how popular you are and what your fandom is like, can have a really big effect on scores across the game. So it'd be interesting to try and work it out, and that's probably the next thing I'm going to do before I get on and do the rules. But yeah, here in press we've got everything from being written about in the local paper, appearing in the local radio, appearing in films, but it's in cameos. If you want to make a film about you, that is in creations. Radio interview, that's an actual national radio interview, television, magazine cover, and so on, and all these different things that you can do in order to basically seen as press activities. That's these first 11 cards, and then paradoxical, someone making a parody of one of your songs. That's good, right? And then road rage, DUI, online beef, and milling mouths. Really, those are things that are kind of out of your control once you've got certain cards and certain sort of conditions, and that's basically just bad things that can happen to you at random, which isn't great, but I think it kind of adds a nice little bit of balance to this deck, rather than people just exploiting this deck for reputation. So every time they go to the press deck, they're not going to be thinking, oh, how am I going to gain reputation this time? It'll be more like, oh, I hope I don't lose reputation. I hope I gain it instead. Central Encounter is the sex tape gameplay loop we were talking about before. If you're new to this channel, basically what I wanted to do was work in a kind of scandal into the first thing, into the first version of the game. So what I've done is I've worked it out so that you basically go on a date, and if the date goes well, if you get right to the end of the date and it goes well, then actually they were filming you, and then if you bump into them later on down the line when you have the tape, then it could go very bad for you. The tape can leak. Basically, if you can't afford to pay the blackmail, it would be another blackmail game loop, which we spoke about before. Right, and there's other things as well. There's like celebrity lunch you can go to, and then you've got these ones, which are basically these are kind of acts of nature along with the spirit of nature, which is actually one of my favourite. It's the version of the book I've got. It's called The Way of Nature, but it's under another title called The Way of the Spirit of Nature. But here you go, there's those 4 cards, and basically if these 3 happen and you've got insurance, it's not so bad, you're okay. If you've got this one, doesn't matter if you've got insurance or not, they refuse to cover it, so it's going to cost you big time. Financial collapse and crime spree have their own effects, and again, you don't really control them. What's interesting about these 3 is they have seasonal basis. So if you draw these during these seasons, then it happens. If you don't worry, it doesn't happen. So with this one, if you're between the autumn tile and the winter tile, which should actually probably say autumn and spring, so if you're basically there in the wet months, then that's going to mess you up. And spontaneous wildfires, that'll be if you're between spring and summer, so during the drier period, then that will really fuck you up, as I say. So yeah, those are seasonal related. I might put in another spring and autumn one just to balance it out a bit, rather than like things just happening bad in winter. But I like even numbers, and as you see, we've got an even number of things in this deck. So that's it, that's press, and in the sidebar here, we actually haven't got that many for this deck, and so that's why I want to kind of bulk it out a bit with that kind of population system, with a fan, the fan system, with the fan mechanic. God, I can't speak right now. But yeah, this covers everything from the unlocks that you get above, and also there's the bad press, utter scumbag, redemption story mechanic, which is like if you do something bad, you get bad press. If you do a lot of bad things or one really bad thing, then you get a scam bag. Redemption story, you collect those and use those to get rid of bad press and a scam bag. So you get those by doing different things like appearing on a magazine cover, for instance. Other ones of these, they're kind of like talents, but they're press-based talents. So you've got best supporting extra, local radio co-host, national radio co-host, and regular TV personality. And Airwave Invader is actually what you get if you've already got local radio co-host and national radio co-host. It just makes it a little bit easier. And basically, what they do is, if you do the same activities regularly, they actually give you a bonus to your reputation every time you pass Spring, because it's basically saying that you've gone on there a few times and now you've gone on there so often. Here we go. You're on the tally so much lately that people are starting to remember your name now. That's basically the tone of those entire cards. So Airwave Invader, like I say, that's related to local radio co-host and national radio co-host. And that's it, basically. That's all I'm going to show you right now. I think professional pinup. I think that's... Oh, yeah, that's who you get on the magazine, basically, 3 times. Right, so let's jump into the ideas and see what else I've got to work on that I haven't mentioned here. So, right at the top, you've got these finance cards, which I might actually work into the Scandal. Actually, to be honest, I've pretty much effectively done that, so I can get rid of that now. Create call. Oh, and also, by the way, look, it only scrolls a tiny little bit now. It's not a massive document. So create corporate backhand and finance card. I was thinking about that kind of being a Scandal loop for the first expansion. Predatory producer, same as that, and same as Stalker. So let's put all of these under a heading, which is Scandal expansion. Ooh. Okay, so yeah, band manager score, that's actually just there for my notes at the moment for when I rewrite the rulebook. Upkeep, general effects specific. I've done those now, so that's just to remind me how to approach the upkeep cards for the press part. Now this is the next part I want to do, audience associated with press. Once I go back and do a couple of things like the rehab, the photo related press cards, things like that. Record album to go alongside game. Yeah, that's what I was talking about a minute ago. Yeah, so move tour requirements to specific tour cards. The reason I said that is if we quickly just jump back into here, go to creations, and then go to the tour cards themselves. So if we go to, let's say, World Tour. Look how skinny this is. That means basically there's more or less no text on it. So it just says draw this many cards, right? If you compare that to the tour cards, so basically go on tour, yeah, look how massive this is. And you see that the requirement list for each one is pretty long, whereas I could actually move that into the requirements for these. The problem is you won't see those requirements until you've already decided and you've jumped into there. So see where it has the requirements, I could basically drop that list into there, but people won't see them until it's there. So that's the issue. So it might again be just a thing in terms of how I approach formatting the cards individually. So there you go, there's that. There's that. Alright, back to the list. Which is, yeah, player who buys studio can sell Pro Studio Bypass. So yeah, that's one small mechanic I want to add in. It's not really a mechanic that's not there. There's already a mechanic there in terms of the music shop, the storage space, and the rehearsal room. I just need to apply that mechanic to the Pro Studio as well. So that, because there's some careers where it's some careers and creations where you need the Pro Studio, and there's only one in the game. So it kind of really sucks if you want to get to a certain career level that you can't. But if you basically go to the studio, book a session, then you can bypass that once. If someone buys the studio, then they should be able to make money from that, is my thinking. So we'll see how that works out in testing, and I've just got to apply that to that card. Add likelihood for releases to it entirely flop. Oh yeah, I noticed that releases, they kind of like sit in this weird realm of it doesn't matter how good you are or how bad you are. Basically it will succeed. Whereas like in the real world, in the real music industry, people can put out records and they entirely flop. I'm thinking about kind of working in sort of like a gateway. So if you're below a certain level, or if you're below a certain career level, do this. If you're above a certain career level, do this. So that it's like definitely going to succeed if you're above a certain career level, at least in some small way. But then if you're below a certain career level, then there's a chance it might flop. And what I've stuck here is basically changed to 3 times num, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 format that I've been using, 3 times numbers, instead of odd even, because at the moment all the releases rely on the odd even roll, which is when you roll your dice, whether you get odd or whether you get even affects the outcome, which is kind of like small, it's better chances for anyone rather than 3 times num, which is kind of it decreases positive chance basically and increases negative chance, or it decreases the likelihood of a very good result. That probably makes more sense in terms of the game mechanics, because I don't want people to play and be like, oh, this game's constantly shitting all over me. But I want it to be like, well, if you're not very good, if you're not very popular, then of course your records aren't going to succeed very much, which I know very well. Then World Tour. So I wanted to work in the side mechanic if I can before I kind of bring this to testing, which is bring along the support act on a world tour. So if you go on a world tour, I was thinking I could just work in this thing where it's like, okay, pick another player, and they get to complete all the cards with you as well, so that they get the bonus. Even if they're like a level 1, well, they won't be able to if they're a level 1, but if they're a level 2 career, so say they're just like this venue fodder, if someone else in the game is like a pop sensation, then the pop sensation can bring the venue fodder along, and the venue fodder can really like benefit from those like those end game bonuses. So there you go. Also, I forgot to mention, there are levels to all the careers, but there's also different levels to all the assets. All the assets have different storage capacities. Well, the ones that are relevant have different storage capacities, and all of them tell you now how much storage space they take up. So yeah, small items take up like 1 space, or sometimes 0 if they're particularly small. And then others, like say for instance, the church organ takes up 10 storage space, because you've got to get all those pipes out somewhere. So although it kind of goes under your floor, there's pipes coming up all over the walls, so there's less shelf space and things like that. That's what I'm thinking. Still need to do the rehab loop, like I said, I mentioned that earlier. Jilted Lover, that relates to the tape. So I'm just going to put that in the notes. Tape. And then photo related press cards, will just cover that. So yeah, basically what I'm going to do, I need to go soon. I need to go down to Blackcheat to rehearse with the band. So I will probably be leaving there in about half an hour. So I think I'm going to go back and tidy up a couple of those things that I just thought of and that I've just spotted as I was going through. And I'm going to call it a day on this, or at least till tonight. And I should hopefully be back with you with another update soon. Let's go back to the roadmap, see where we are. So fundamental mechanics pretty much done. Let's say 95% done now, which means that the base game cards, which are kind of leading the fundamental mechanics, they're about 99% done, because we've done a lot of different cards, a lot of different ideas thrown in. I don't know how many cards are at the moment. I'll probably let you all know that at some point. There's hundreds. There's absolutely hundreds. So yeah, fundamental mechanics, which are being led by the base game cards. Base game cards are 99% done, which means fundamental mechanics reliably are kind of 95% done, because I won't really know until I start testing the base games, how I need to affect those fundamental mechanics, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. So this thing's kind of like rolls back and forward on itself for a little while. Once I've done that, which will be probably within the next few days, then I will actually rewrite the first edition rulebook, which is something I was working on just before I started developing these cards. So the rulebook that I have, it's relatable, but it's not accurate now. So I need to go back and basically rewrite that almost from scratch. Once I've done that, that's basically these 3 steps more or less done for the time being. And then it will be taking that and turning it into a digital prototype. That's what I'm most excited about right now. I'm kind of done with cards. The cards are giving me a bit of a headache. But I feel like it's been worth it because there's a lot of interesting game mechanics there. There's a lot of narrative there. There's a lot of room as well where there is a narrative for a good band manager to kind of imagine what's happening in the scene and kind of provide a really kind of rich narrative to the player. So if a band manager's played this game 5 to 10 times, they might really start to understand the world, all the different items, all the different people in it, what impacts what. And so they'll be able to, just from one particular card, kind of tell the player something that's going to be like I say, just a really rich narrative kind of added into the game. So that's really nice. That's been worth the effort, even though it's been possibly 3 to 4 weeks now of just getting these first set of game cards finished. Yeah, it's been kind of worth it. And that's it. Then we'll start testing the digital prototype, which means that basically, no, it won't be. It'll be building the digital prototype, which will take a while, actually. Like I said, there's hundreds of cards to implement. And then we'll start the funding for the physical prototype, which won't really take effect until we won't actually probably have the first physical prototype manufactured until the end of March. So that basically we can start testing the game in real life in April, but then the art can start to actually get properly produced. The artistic development here in January to March, that'll probably be in March, the artistic development will really begin. Or to be honest, in January, that's all up in the air at the moment. Let's really focus on the winter, because I do get massively carried away with myself sometimes. So yeah, over winter, we've still got quite a bit to do, but we are really chugging on through it now. So that's it from me. Thank you for joining me on this web development update. This game dev phase 1 update. Step 1 almost done. I'm really tired and my mouth really hurts now, so I'm going to shut up. Thank you. Goodbye. I love you, Ma.